So thank you very much. I'd now like to hand over to Beth. Beth I've worked with over a number of years for a number of different organisations, and she's going to talk to you about how we can continue as individuals to grow our personal, professional and career development. She's particularly going to talk to you about the different routes you can take in your career and help your thinking in that regard. She's been working in this field for 20 years. I think she started at the Lawn Tennis Association, or that was her kind of her last role before she started as a consultant. So I'm really pleased to be introducing her. I can tell that people are going for a quick water and loo break. That's absolutely fine. There will be more of a break in about 40-45 minutes, so hold on to that. So I'd like to introduce Beth to you right now. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Joe, for introducing all the wonderful things that are coming up for you. I am Beth. I have worked in what I would call a very wiggly career in my life. I started off by doing a music degree. Anyone else here done a music degree? A little bit, yeah. And do you want to know what the careers advice was for me when I did a music degree? They said you can be a music teacher. So I went to a school and tried that for half a day and decided very much not to do that. And then people were like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I've got no idea. So I went and got a temp job and to see where it led me to. I started off working in the world of finance and investment management. How, I do not know. I managed to give a really, really good interview about how all the things to do with music are actually like to do with maths. Yeah. I was quite good at convincing people then. But actually, it was a really interesting career because about 6 months in, once I'd got my head around what I was supposed to do, someone said to me, oh, we need to train some new people. We've got loads of new people starting, we need to train them. And I was like, oh, I'll do that. Because I'm a put your hand up person. Let's say yes to everything, give it a go. And I then found my niche in the world of learning and development and supporting people with their careers, with their professional development, with their how do they get what they want from their careers. So I did that for a number of years. I then went and did something completely different. I went to work in the public sector for a couple of years. And again, I don't know how I managed to do this, but I started off working in learning and development, going, right, okay, I know what I'm doing, just apply it in a different way. And they went, oh, by the way, we have zero budget for you to do anything. That's where your creativity kicks in. What can we do when we have no resources, no money? And then I ended up managing somehow things like finance again. How does this happen? Who knows? And then in my final part of my employed career, I worked in sport. So at the Lawn Tennis Association, we, again, learning and development. And there I looked after things like recruitment and engagement and all the wonderful things there. And then for the last 7 years, I have been working independently across lots of different organisations. So I've spoken to thousands of people about their careers. I coach people on a one-to-one basis. And I'm here today to help you think about what is it that you can do to help you with your career. But I also appreciate that you've all been listening for an hour and you haven't had the opportunity to speak. So I'm going to start off with suggesting, number one, that you stand up if you feel like it and you feel able to. And you go and find somebody that you don't know. Because I know for a fact you're all sat next to your work BFFs. Yeah? You're like, yeah, I am actually. Oh, you wanted to sit in a safe space. The people at the front only sat here because there weren't any other chairs left. And they were really, really worried that I might pick on you, right? Don't make eye contact, it's dangerous. So what I want you to do is just for a few minutes, and if you want to do this while grabbing a water, etc., move around, get the blood pumping. Remember, Joe said well-being is very important. Let's get our physical well-being. Sitting is the new smoking. That's what I've heard. Move around, have a bit of a stretch, and I want you to do this. How did you imagine your career when you were a kid? I'm going to give you a few of mine. I thought I would be a fighter pilot in the RAF, influenced by Top Gun. I actually don't like flying, have no idea where that came from. Or that I'd be on the West End stage. But go and have that conversation. How did you imagine your career? 5 minutes. Okay. You are going to have more time to chat in a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I want a couple of people to tell me what their things were. Someone from this slide, shout out what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
Air hostess.
Air hostess. Did you ever do it? Would you do it now? No. Any other air hostesses, pilots, aviation industry, people over here? Yeah, okay. Someone over here, tell me what you wanted to be.
Teacher.
A teacher. Anyone else thinking about teaching profession? Yeah? Anyone who did the teaching profession? Yeah, for a few years? Doesn't have to stay the same. Someone from over this side, tell me something you wanted to be. A tennis coach.
Tennis player.
Or a tennis player. Do you still have a little hit occasionally?
No, my leg's too short for that.
My legs are too short. Yeah. It's annoying, isn't it, that being tall is helpful for those things, and we have zero control over it. One more from over this side. A dolphin trainer. Any other dolphin trainers? Something to do with animals? Anyone else in that zone? Right. So what's interesting here, we've got some things that people have done those careers, we've got some things people haven't. Put your hands up for me if you are doing a job right now that you knew existed when you were a kid. Oh, excellent, some people. Put your hand up now if you had no idea what your job was until you were an actual grown-up. Excellent. I'm also loving the hands going up properly. Sometimes we get little T-Rex arms where they're like, no, I had no idea. And here's the interesting thing that I find more and more about careers, and I'm like a total nerd, so I research this stuff a lot, is that where we start, where we think we might go, is actually very rarely where we end up. And I think in the world we live in today, there are jobs right now that didn't exist 3 years ago. There's a job in the world now that is called AI question setter. They work out how to ask the questions that get AI to give you the right answers. Did anyone know that existed when you were a kid? Has anyone ever had that careers advice for you? I think you'd be a really great AI question setter. There are jobs now that didn't exist 10 years ago. Anyone here work with social media? Yeah? Got social media in your job description? All of these things keep on changing because work and careers are really, really dynamic. And I get to listen to lots and lots of people's career stories, which I always find fascinating. And I have never, ever heard two that are the same. The thing that I have heard loads of is that most people's careers look more like a bit of wet spaghetti thrown at a wall than they do anything nice and neatly planned out, because there are so many different things that come into it. So this idea that we're able to kind of start somewhere and then move very neatly through in a linear way from where we wanted to be to getting there is actually not really how the world works. It did in some professions work like that for a while. It is less and less likely. And we're in the world now of constant change in organizations. We're in the world of the environment's changing, the bigger picture on the global scale is changing. You know, the old AI is coming for your job factor. Now, I am a ever optimist, so my idea of that is AI can do all the boring bits of my job I don't want to do, and I can get to do all the fun bits of my job I do. Now, if they can get an AI that can, like, do your washing and do your ironing for you, I am all for that. Anyone here clever enough to invent that for us? I've got some nods. I'm going to invent that one. Give it a go. So we need to understand that things are changing and that jobs that exist now may not exist in 5 years' time, and jobs that don't have anything to do with the world now will exist in 5 years' time. And that opens up such a wide range of opportunity. But it does mean that if anyone ever asks you that awful question, I'm looking at Rob here, who works in talent acquisition, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? I'll be like, I'm not sure I can answer 5 hours' time, let alone 5 years' time. You never ask that question, do you? There's a promise here that that question will not be asked for you. So engaging with that change and being open to thinking about a dynamic career, thinking about doing things differently. And I personally think the great things about how careers exist now is you do not have to pick one thing and stick at it for life. Anyone here ever got to the stage of being a bit bored in your job? And if your manager's here, just put your hand up gently, it's fine. Bored, stuck. A little bit like I don't know what I want to do next. Sometimes, you know that old phrase, a change is as good as a rest? Sometimes a change might be exactly what you need. And people say to me things like, but what if I change careers? Am I going to have to start from the beginning? But you're never starting from the beginning. You're always starting from the experience you already have. And Joe's just talked to you about these transferable skills that you all have, that you're all building. And I think for me personally, and I've worked in professional services type jobs my entire career, is those things set you up for amazing success across so many different things. Joe moved from managing student unions to being in HR. That is not a career path that anyone in HR tells you about. You can create your own. So we want to think about how do you do that. And the first thing I want to encourage you all to do is to think about playing the long game. I like to see investing in your personal, your professional, your career development as a bit like investing in a pension. And everyone's like, Beth, that sounds really dull. Because does anyone else sit here and think, I'd really like to have that money for my pension right now because I could do lots of fun things with it? But actually, all the little bits of investment you make now, whether that's in your skills development, your professional development, in thinking about how do you expand those things, in thinking about your wider experience and trying and experimenting with new and different things, they will all lead you to somewhere in the future. But you don't necessarily know where that will lead you to because things change. So I'd be thinking about how do I invest a little bit more, and a little bit more, and see where it grows you to. Then I also often hear this, the things that get in our way of making that investment, of saying, I am going to invest in this particular skill. I am going to put some time and energy into this particular thing. I'm going to take a risk and move from one department to another department, or from one organization to another organization. There are so many blockers that can get in our way. Here's a few that I hear all the time, and I'm going to get you to tell me what yours are. I hear this one. I don't have the time. Put your hands up if you ever said, I don't have the time to invest in my development. Okay. Keep your hands up if you have also got lost either in a Netflix binge or an Instagram scroll and lost 3 hours of your life. Everyone's like, yes, we've all been there. Time is weird. It doesn't actually work in that particular way. Put your hand up if you've ever been in a situation where maybe you've been going, there is so much stuff. There's so much potential. If I go on LinkedIn Learning, which is amazing, it's an amazing resource, but how do I pick which one to do? How do I filter it? How do I know what might be useful to me? And this is where that constant change has happened in the world of learning and development. 20 years ago, learning and development was super expensive and not very accessible. Now, you can learn how to do anything on YouTube. Me, non-technical person, do you know what I learned how to do? I learned how to repressurize my boiler. I felt so good. Does it make me a plumber? No, it does not. Because when the thing leaked, I had no idea what to do. But we can learn anything. There is so much out there. The challenge is actually filtering. So what I want you to do, open up your Menti for me. What are your personal blockers to you doing the stuff that you need to do or you could do, that you can do, to enabling you to get where you want to go with your skills, with your learning, with your development? Loving some of these. Procrastination. Me, time. A career change might equal a pay cut. That does happen sometimes. Anyone in this room, I'm going to put my hand up for this, I took a big pay cut because, by the way, the public sector doesn't pay as much of investment management. Shock horror. I took a pay cut then. It was probably one of the best things I've ever done for my career because I was playing the long game. How does this skill develop in this particular thing? Finances, mindset, such a big one, we're going to talk about that in a minute. Laziness, money and time. Imposter syndrome. Who thinks they suffer from that sometimes? Who doesn't like it when they call it a syndrome, as if there's something wrong with you? If you, again, nerding out here, I've done a bit of research on imposter syndrome, and you actually find that they are totally normal human feelings. And actually, the people who never get imposter syndrome tend to have some fairly severe issues, like being a psychopath. So what we've done is we've syndromized something that is totally normal, which is our fear of change. It's our fear of stepping into something. It's our fear of, will I be good enough? And you've heard Joe say earlier, apply for those roles, get the feedback. You never know where you might be. And putting ourselves out there is a risk. But I think it's one of those risks. The people who get the careers, has my mic stopped working? Oh, hello. Is that any better? We okay? Cool. I'm quite loud anyway. You probably could still hear me. Thank you. The people who I see who kind of get the careers that they're looking for, who are able to step into a world where they go, yeah, this is what I really want. And number one, the people that talk about what they want more often. So they don't wait for somebody to ask them the question. They're there saying to their manager, oh, I'm really interested in this bit, or I'd really like to be on that project. They're also the people who put their hand up when opportunities come along and they say yes to those opportunities, even if they don't know where it might lead them to. And the third thing is they're not afraid of a little bit of risk because they know that whatever they do will give them another experience to add to their list. What I like to think about with your blockers are how many of them are reasons, like genuine reasons, and how many of them are the excuses we make to ourselves. I'm going to press that little button because I know for sure I will use time as an excuse every single time. Whereas actually, I can find time because it doesn't have to be massive, and we'll talk a little bit about what can we do in a micro sense when you're looking at this. And sometimes when it's actually a genuine reason, there's a logical path through it that we can find. But when we're talking about our blockers that are the ones that we maybe use as excuses, or that procrastination where you've really tidied your desk up instead of doing the one thing that you were supposed to do, where you've gone and done something else instead of putting the application form in, that's usually about our mindset and where we're headed with it. And mindsets can be really useful. They could be really helpful if you're in the mindset of, I'm going to try this thing out, I'm going to experiment, I'm going to take a moment for myself, I'm going to invest in this, I believe I can try, I believe I'm worth putting forward for this kind of thing. Or they can be a massive blocker. And that's if we're in what we call a fixed mindset, which is, I'm not going to be good enough for that. I'm not ready for that. How many people tell themselves they're not ready for things? How many people have said, I'm not ready for this, and then they see someone else get that job and go, how did they get that? I hear the laughter, you're like, yeah, but I'm not going to make eye contact with anyone in case they think it's them. This happens a lot. We're putting blockers in our own way. We're thinking about, what if I don't get it? What if I feel that pang of rejection? Who here loves being rejected? Right, 2 people here, you love a bit of rejection. Because rejection tells you that you tried something, right? It tells you put yourself out there. What I can tell you feels way worse. Like rejection is like that horrible sick feeling, like you feel awful about it. It's like, I didn't get the job. And I put hours into my application and interviews and somebody else got it. It feels awful. I'm not going to tell you not to feel that. But I can tell you what feels worse, and that's the regret of not knowing and not trying. Because regret lasts way longer. It sits inside of you and it eats away at your self-belief and your confidence. So whenever you're in this space of thinking, should I, shouldn't I? My advice to you is, why not try? Why not give it a go? Why not try something different? If you're ever feeling stuck, if you're feeling a bit bored, try something different. And we also need to think about, as we move through our careers, as we get older, as we work on different things, is what good looks like looks different throughout time. So who here went to school? Excellent, that's some kind of education. Do you remember being told at the time, if you were in the UK, GCSE is the most important thing, and your life will be rubbish if you do not get the right GCSEs? And at the time, you're like, this is the most important thing, there's lots of stress. Anyone got kids going through it at the moment? Stress, anxiety, horribleness. And then you get to like me in your 40s and you go, what was I worried about? Nobody cares about them anymore. and then if you go through education. But it's like the idea that this equals this. So GCSEs equals your access to your next phase of education. If you did A-levels or BTECs, etc., that gives you access to the next level of education. And then at university, it's like, get this, and that will help you get a good job. And then you go, but I did a music degree. It was fun, not particularly useful for careers. But you work through this stuff and you go, oh, at different stages, different things mean different things. So sometimes you might be going, actually, you might have that thought, and I have this, but I really need to do a professional qualification. I need to go and get this, I need to go and get that. But actually what you might need for the next job is more experience. What you might need is having to have worked on a specific type of project or managed a particular type of person or been engaged in a particular type of budget level. So I'd be thinking, how can I rethink what great looks like to help me get to the next level? And I'm not going to go too far into this one because Joe's given you so much context about where you are in this organisation, in this sector, is where is the organisation going? Where is the sector going? What is going to be valued in the long term, in the next few years? Where's there a skill that I could develop where I could be ahead of the game because everyone else is thinking about what we needed in the past, not what we needed in the future? So start to think about, how do I do the stuff that helps me get there, even if I don't know what there actually is? And this is the bit I really want to go through with you today, is to think about the shape of your career and to think about the shape of your next steps. Right, we're going to do a hands up again, but what I want, first of all, put your hands up for me if you know exactly what you want your next job to be. I reckon that's about 5% of the audience, and please don't quote me on numbers, I'm guessing. Put your hands up for me if you've got kind of a vague idea or a direction. Yeah? I reckon that's probably about 30%. Put your hands up for me if you've got no idea, but you know you want to do something. That's probably about another 30%. We all sit in different places. Sometimes it's really obvious what we want to do. Sometimes it's I've got no idea. Sometimes it's going to be within this organisation. Sometimes it might be beyond this organisation with that great opportunity to kind of come back in the future. And one thing that can be really hard is thinking about, if I don't know what the job is that's next, where do I start? And this is where I really recommend you think about the shape of what you want to do next and not necessarily the job you want to do next. You may also find the challenge of looking for jobs whereby in some organisations things have got the same name and are a completely different job. Or they've got completely different names. Then you go, but that's exactly what I do in this particular job. There's no standardisation across the world on this stuff. It gets hard to look for them. I think when you think about the shape of what you want to take, it makes it easier to filter down, number one, what kind of jobs you might want to go for, number two, what kind of skills you might need, and therefore linking your development to all of those things. So let me run you through some different routes you might want to think about. The first one is the vertical growth. Now, the reason I say this first isn't actually because I think it's the one that most people will do. I actually think it's the one that we think about first because it's the very traditional kind of, you apply for a job at that next level, you get that job at that next level. It's very much the ladder state of things. So it's moving upwards. Now what we find is throughout your career there will be moments where that happens if you want that kind of thing, but actually that doesn't happen all the time. And sometimes we need to think about things like horizontal growth, sometimes called sideways moves, doing a bit of a zigzag. Who's done one of these in their career? Yeah, I love them. I think they're really, really, really underestimated as a great career move. And the reason I think that is because when you do any kind of horizontal growth, where you maybe move into a different role in your department or move across into a different department, etc., what you gain is more skills, you gain a bigger network, you're able to think about things in different areas, and it can be really, really useful, number one, if you're bored and you feel stuck, to just get some movement going, but also it can be really useful to help you have that breadth of experience if you do ever want to move upwards as well. The next one I like to call the active adventure, and this is where you might go and do something completely different. So you might go to a different department. You might go from student unions to HR. I mean, that might be one of the most, I've never heard of that one before, Joe. It's a unique one. You might go from working in IT to working in your student areas. Whatever it is, going and doing something different can be really useful. People also sometimes get this by doing things like side hustles or going on secondments, etc. The next one to consider is what I call the deep dive career. And this is where you become that deep expert in the thing that you are expert at. Often these exist in those professional services careers. It's like you're an expert in finance or you're an expert. Anyone here work in IT? Got any IT people here? No one's admitting to it, even if they do. But potentially things like being a real expert in a particular programming language. I say that like I know what a programming language is. If I was on that skills matrix for IT skills, I would be quite low. But thinking about going deep into what you do, you become the expert, you help other people with that, you train that, but you decide that that's where you want to be, and you stay there, and you think about how can I do it. There is one kind of caveat sideline to this particular one of a deep dive, is just make sure you keep up with what the marketplace is looking for. I know some people who were very much into one particular product in the world of IT, and their organisation did a review of all their products and completely changed them. Their skills were no longer valuable in that organisation, and they were behind because they hadn't done their research. But it's a really good one. Steady state expert. If you love the job you do, if you're really good at it, if you can find that growth within it, there is no reason not to stay doing this. And I always use this example. I had someone come to me for some career coaching. They said, oh, Beth, I really want to change my job. And we talked about their current job. And she was like, I love this bit. My team are amazing. I get to do all these exciting things. And every single bit they loved. So I said to her, why do you want to change jobs? And she said, oh, well, all my friends are, so I think I should as well. Like, is it the right time? Because everyone else is. And this is one of the myths, I think, around careers, is that you have to always be moving. You actually don't. What you always have to be doing is keeping up to date with what that job requires of you. But staying in that particular role for a season, for a reason, for a period of time, forever, is actually okay. And then finally, the tactical trip, and I think these can be great. I always think about this as you're like getting your wheelie case with you, like you're going on holiday, getting on a how good timing was that? You're getting on a plane. I can't believe that just happened to me. That will never, ever happen again, that amazing timing. You're getting on a plane with your suitcase of skills, right? You're doing this, you're doing that. Perhaps you're a project manager in one particular department, and then like, I can take all of these skills and I can go and use them somewhere else. So I'm discovering a broader perspective. I'm doing a different type of project, but I'm taking all my skills with me. So with these 6, and there could probably be 26 different types of career moves, I think these 6 are ones where you can go, actually, what am I really looking for right now? Do I want to expand sideways? Do I want to go to a different department? Do I want to go and try something completely new? Do I want to get to be the #1 expert on this particular thing? Do I want to stay where I am because I'm really good at it and I really enjoy it and I love my team? All of these things can help you decide what shape you want it to take, and that can then help you think about, actually, I want to go and talk in one of these skills centers on the flexible talent bank. I want to go and think about, how do I get more of an adventure in my life? How do I do some of these things? And it can really help you with those. And we're going to ask you in a little bit to think about those particular career routes. I'm also going to really encourage you to diversify your development and how you focus on your learning. We've already heard from Joe about the 70-20-10 model, and to think about doing lots and lots and lots of different things in your day-to-day work and beyond. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I've got a bit stuck because I'm not doing anything new or different in how I'm doing it. It's like I'm always doing the same kind of course, or I'm always doing the same kind of reading, or the same kind of listening. But actually, there are lots of different things you can do. And the first one here, who put time on their blocker? Yeah, quite a few people put their time on the blockers. If time is one of your blockers, one thing I would really recommend you do is to consider how and when you can introduce micro-learning into your world. Now, I did do some maths on this one. Please don't test me on it. But if you were to do 10 minutes of learning-focused activity over a year, and I'm not talking about weekends, you get them for free. I'm not talking about the days you're supposed to be on holiday. We're not talking about that. If you talk about working days in a year, if you did 10 minutes a day every working day, you would have done more than an entire week's worth of learning and development for yourself in just 10 minutes a day. If I told you now, go and find a whole week, you'd say, it's not possible, right? Anyone here going, no, I've not got enough work? You're like, no, I've got more things on my to-do list than hours in the day to do. Right, so go and find 10 minutes a day. And in 10 minutes a day, there are so many things that you can do that add up over time, little drops of it. So things like listen to 10 minutes of a podcast. There's a podcast on about 1 million different subjects out there in the world. Listen to 10 minutes of a podcast. You could do it when you're on the DLR coming in to work. You could read 10 minutes of a book. You could have a 10-minute conversation with an expert who acts as an informal mentor to you. You could do some reflection, get a notebook, write down what you've learnt that day. There are so many things that you can do, but in 10 minutes a day, you can make a lot happen over a year. So just think about 10 minutes. What's the 10 minutes I can do? And what you'll probably find is you won't do 10 minutes a day because real life interrupts your 10 minutes a day. But maybe some days you do half an hour and maybe some days you don't do any time. But over time, that gradual development really, really makes a difference. The other side of that is where you have got some structured learning, where you can go on and do a course on something. Maybe you're one of the people who put their name forward because you're thinking about an apprenticeship might be useful for you. Or there's some training that you need to go on for staying compliant in your job. Get that scheduled in your diary. Get it in as soon as possible, and then protect that time. One thing I am hearing a lot of is people dropping out of that stuff at the last minute because you're focusing on getting some work done, because everything's going on in your world. But every time you sign up to something, or you don't sign up to something because you're too busy or there's lots to do, you're actually making the choice to limit your own development. And if you want to develop, get this stuff scheduled in, block it in your diary, tell your team you're not going to be available that hour, that day, that week, whatever it is, because you're prioritizing that development. And I think this one is a really important factor as well, and this is about reflection. It's about taking the time to think about where you are. Who here has taken more than an hour in the last month to think about your career? Not many of you. Reflection is the part of learning that actually locks all these things in. Giving yourself that opportunity, having a little sit down, thinking about what you want to do, and maybe using today and coming along to this session as a bit of a spark to get you thinking, where am I? Where do I want to be? What do I want to do? What route might I want to take? How many of you have an up-to-date CV ready to go? Excellent. How many of you haven't written your CV since the last time you applied for a job? It's a really easy thing to do. Put that on your to-do list. Update your CV. Because then, if that moment happens where you're like, oh, it's Friday at the end of University Development Week, and Beth said, go and apply for some jobs, get interested. And you go onto the internet and you look on the recruitment pages. I'm assuming there's like recruitment pages. Yeah, I know. You go on there and it's like, this is the perfect job. It's the one I've been waiting for. It describes me. I need to apply for it. And it's like 4:55. And the deadline is 5 o'clock. And you're like, that CV from 1997 ain't going to cut it. And you don't have time. Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating to make the point here. But doing things like keeping your CV up to date means that you can say yes to some of those opportunities. It also means you do this thing, which is remember all the stuff you've actually done. Anyone who's done their CV recently probably goes, oh, I totally forgot I did that particular job. Or I didn't realise that actually that was a really big achievement I need to put in there. So some reflection time, some time to consider, having those conversations in your PDRs, a bit on your own, a bit with other people, engaging with other people in your team, going and having conversations with people in an area that you're really interested in working in are also good ways to do this. So, I've been talking at you a lot. I want to get some thinking from you. And the first thing I'm going to do is to really lead in from that reflection point. I want you to think about these 16 skills. These are the skills that we started with. Obviously, there's some work to do. They're the emerging skills, possibly some more to think about and add after today. But what I want you to do is a little exercise called 4, 3, 2, 1. It's going to be on there's going to be a link. If I get the right page here, there it is. Right, let me do this first. There's the link. This is a Microsoft Office form. And I am reliably told, I've told you already, I lack IT skills. But I am reliably told by people who actually have that skill at a higher level than I do, that once you fill this in, if you tick a box that says save my answers, you can then go back into this afterwards. You can then print it off or share it in one of your PDR sessions or in a one-to-one with your manager or in a careers conversation with somebody to look at your skills. So on this one, what I want you to do is 4 skills that you're confident in delivering at a high level right now in your role. So pick your top 4 skills that come out of those 16. The second part is what skills would you like to develop to support you in your current role? Because remember, growth happens in our current roles as well as beyond those in our careers. I want you to do 2 skills that are needed most for your future career, so pick 2. And then 1, I want you to think about, as a result of coming here today, of listening, of getting engaged, what's one action you might take to help you develop those skills. So there's the link. Tick the button to save it. Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up, like I know what I'm talking about. And I just want you, for a moment, a little bit of self-reflection. Take a few minutes, fill that in, and use it as a starting point for some conversations. Are people managing to get in? Give me a thumbs up if you got it. Excellent. If anyone can't get in, Olga's got the QR code here. I also know you can see the food arriving and you're all going, how much longer is she going to go on for? Don't worry, not too long. If anyone can't get on and wants a paper version, just put your hand up. Sanjita will pop round with them.
Are they the same?
Yeah. Because also we've got to think about strengths we can still want to develop, right? If we're good at something, we want to be even better at it. Pop it in there. I'm a great believer in developing our strengths. You're going to go straight in?
Yeah, I'm just going to read it.
The chefs would call that deconstructed. Give me a hands up if you've done your 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll give you another minute or so. People are still going in there. It's a good place to start, a good conversation starter. Feel free to keep thinking about that and to look at it. What I want to do now is I'm going to introduce you to what I want you to do next, but you can do the next bit whilst also enjoying a snack. I see there's some nice looking stuff over there. Don't all crush into each other. Cue orderly while we go there. What I want you to do is to have a discussion with somebody new. Introduce yourself, talk about what you do. But maybe think about this. If you look back in your career, what routes have you actually taken? What steps have you taken? So if I look back in my career, I did vertical, horizontal, active adventure, horizontal, tactical trip, vertical, horizontal, and I now spend my entire life on an active adventure doing lots and lots of different things because I love it. I love working with different people. I really enjoy getting different things into my life. That's where I love it. Where have you been? And where might you be heading? What route might you be looking for next? Are you going vertical, horizontal, active, deep, steady state, or tactical? I will leave those up here when you go for your coffees and snacks, but have this conversation. Be great to do some networking. Remember that people who talk about their careers more are the people that tend to get what they're looking for. You might find somebody who could be an informal mentor for you. You might find somebody you've got a connection with you never knew before. So that's what we're going to do in the final portion of the session, which is networking. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody for sitting and listening. I know it's been warm in here. Go and enjoy yourself there. If you have any questions after today, if there's anything you want to share with us, do use the learning and development at uel.ac.uk email address. And Joe and I and the team will be hanging around. If you want to come and chat to us, feel free to do so. Joe, anything from you? Thank you.
So hopefully you've found it interesting, hopefully it's resonated with you, very much a kind of a starting point, both in terms of our work, in terms of supporting your career, but also in terms of your work, in terms of thinking about how